सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। So tomorrow is the Ganesh Chaturthi and Lord Ganesha is worshipped as the deity who is the remover of all obstacles. Before we start anything auspicious, we always invoke Bhagwan Ganesha. He is the Buddhi Devata also, remover of all obstacles. So we are right now going through the tough times at COVID. So I thought we can use this opportunity to reflect on how to overcome obstacles in life. Lord Ganesha is the deity who is Vignaharta. It's very interesting in Sanskrit. The same word, Vigneshwara, means one who removes obstacles also and one who puts obstacles also. The same meaning it has. I mean, same word has two contrary meanings as though. So one is one who puts obstacles. Why does he put obstacles? Because through obstacles we manifest our potential. By facing the obstacles, we learn to become stronger. We become more focused. We sometimes get wake-up calls in life. Sometimes our priorities get sorted out because of these obstacles and challenges that come. So sometimes he may put obstacles to help us to evolve. Though it may appear difficult, it may appear challenging, it may appear, a lot of pain may be involved in it. But there is pain in any process of growth because one has to leave one's comfort zone. Even when a child is born, the mother and the child both go through pain. But it is a joyous occasion. So on one side we can see it as a painful situation. On the other side we can see that it is a birth of a new situation. Something more grander, greater in us starts manifesting. It also serves to strengthen our faith. Makes us question what is it that we really hold on to when times are difficult. Where does our mind go? What is our go-to place or go-to person or go-to God? Where do we go when we are in difficult times? So obstacles have their own importance in life. At the same time, we also need strength to overcome these obstacles. So Lord Ganesha is the one who removes obstacles. Now, removes obstacles meaning, see, grace of Bhagwan can remove anything. Any obstacle can go when we pray to Bhagwan. And Ajay Bhai had sent a very nice video today on prayer, how the midbrain gets activated through prayer. So that is one way to look at it, that by invoking grace of Bhagwan, our obstacles can be removed by the Lord's grace. Other way is to invoke strength within us. So as a devotee, sometimes prays that, oh Lord, this is not possible for me to overcome by my effort. Your grace alone is required. You please help me to overcome this. Sometimes a devotee prays that, oh Lord, please bless me with more strength that I can overcome obstacles, challenges, difficulties. So it can work either ways. First point to overcome obstacles is this, is our attitude. You know, it is said that some people, some meet challenges of life. I'm just not getting the exact quote. It's a Sanskrit shloka actually. Some refuse to meet challenges of life because of fear of obstacles. Many people don't take up certain initiatives, take up certain risk. They will not take up, to do something which has never been done before because they are scared of obstacles. So some people refuse to meet challenges of life because of fear of obstacles. Some people meet the challenges of life till they encounter obstacles. The moment an obstacle comes, they will drop. This is not possible, I can't do it, they will leave it. Third type of people are those who will face the obstacles, face the challenges, overcome the obstacles, but do it once. After that, they say, not again. Once I managed to do it, I overcame the obstacles, I achieved what I had to, now no more. So that is the third type of person. But the fourth type of person is one who meets the challenges, overcomes the obstacles, and is still enthusiastic that if next time I have to do this, I will do once again, no problem. So it depends on how we face the obstacles. It's our attitude. The third and the fourth, sometimes we may have to alternate between third and fourth. Not necessarily that always the fourth type of person only we have to be. It is fine even if it is third. But the first two, one should try to overcome those. The inhibitions inside, the fear inside. So using the word obstacle, the acronym we will see of the word obstacle, and through that, what qualities can strengthen us, which represent the form of Lord Ganesha. So O, I'm just going to share here something. Yeah. Okay. So O for objective knowledge. First and foremost, to face any obstacle, we must have clarity. We must have the right understanding, right knowledge, because knowledge is power. The more we know about our goal, the more we know about the challenges or the obstacles that have come, we understand its nature, we are able to overcome them. Even today, we are still struggling to find out the symptoms of, the COVID disease. Sometimes new symptoms appear. Sometimes people who have got cured, they are exhibiting some different types of behavior which are not known. The disease has repercussions on the body. Long-term repercussions are there. So one is still gaining knowledge. So one is knowledge is a great source of strength. So one should gain, one is the functional knowledge, the knowledge about the goal, about the subject in which I am engaged in, about the various challenges and obstacles that come. That is objective knowledge. Along with that, we also need subjective knowledge. So the big head of Lord Ganesha represents the combination of objective and subjective knowledge. because only objective knowledge is not sufficient, which is what happens in the world today, that with increasing comforts, conveniences, luxuries, etc., we still go through much more stress, worry, tension, anxiety, because there is an imbalance. The standard of living has gone up, but standard of life correspondingly has not become that much more deeper. So there's an imbalance. The higher is the standard of living, deeper must be our standard of life, which are the values, vision, devotion, surrender, those aspects. So Lord Ganesha represents a combination of both these knowledge. So objective knowledge becomes most effective when there is subjective knowledge combined with it. Like Arjun is a classic example of that. He had all objective knowledge and skill and concentration power, the best archer of his times, but what happened to him? Collapsed in the battlefield, even before the war has to begin. Why? Because he prepared for 12 years with objective knowledge. He acquired skills, he acquired various weapons. But subjective knowledge of who am I, subjective knowledge of how to integrate the body, mind, intellect, what are the values which one should follow to align these, that knowledge was missing. The knowledge of oneness of the whole creation, the knowledge of life, cycle of birth and death, freedom, what is, one's own swadharma, many such things which the Gita speaks about, that is a subjective knowledge. When a person has both this objective knowledge and subjective knowledge, then one is able to take life in a balanced way. So one is objective knowledge, O is for objective knowledge, which is coupled with subjective knowledge. Both these are very important. Other is also to take situations objectively. Lot of obstacles come because we take situations personally, when it is not even meant. There is nothing personal in that situation, but we will take it very, very personally. Somebody said something, somebody did not say something, somebody saw my message, did not reply. We take it very personally. If I give some advice to my son or to my spouse and they don't listen to me, then I feel insulted, I feel hurt. Why? Because I'm taking it personally. I'm just giving some examples. There are many situations like that where we take it very personally, especially rejection is something that one can't handle, where it may not even be meant, intended, but one can't handle it. You see, one story comes of the marriage of Lord Ganesha. It's an interesting story. You must have heard that story. It's in a different context in Shiva Puran. Same story comes in different contexts in different Puranas. So, one day there is a talk about Ganesha and Kartikeya. They are two children of Shivji and Parvatiji, and their marriage has to happen. So the discussion is whose marriage has to happen first. Brahmaji comes there at that point in time and he gives a fruit to Mother Parvati and says that, give it to one who is the most competent and decide based on that whose marriage has to happen first. So that fruit, when it is given, the condition now laid by Parvati ji is that whoever goes around the world and comes back first will get the fruit and their marriage will happen first. So Ganesh ji, so Kartikeya, he sits on his peacock and he immediately goes to various tirthasthans and takes a dip in all these sacred rivers and all that. And he takes a turn, he wants to come back. Meanwhile, when he comes back, what does he see? He sees that Ganesh is already having the fruit. is eating the fruit. So when he's eating the fruit and he's laughing, he's teasing his brother, "Ki I got it." And we should know Ganesh ji is the elder one, Kartikeya is the younger one. So, Kartikeya said, how did this happen? I went around the world and this Ganesha, he did not even try, did not even do anything. So Ganesha said that, our Shastras say that our parents are our world. And here are Shivji and Parvati ji, they are the mother and father of the whole universe. And they alone are appearing as the whole universe. So I applied my intelligence, I went around them, is equal to going around the world. So I got the fruit, I won in the competition. And Shivji and Parvati ji had fixed up an alliance also of Ganesh ji in the meanwhile. Vishwarup, the Devata called Vishwarup, his daughter Siddhi and Riddhi, or sometimes they call Siddhi Buddhi, either of them. So the marriage also got fixed. Kartikeya could not handle this rejection. He left Kailash. He went down south to a Parvat called Crouch Parvat. And he went and settled there. He didn't want to come back at all. And Shivji and Parvati ji went there, tried to, please him and tried to pacify him and bring him back. But he said, "No, I am not coming." And he stayed there and he was doing tapasya, and there are many yogis, siddhas, all of them who were all around him. Finally, they stayed there for a few days, it seems. And then finally, when they were going, they tried to convince him and he said, "Okay, I will come." But just when he was about to leave, all these rishis and siddhas and yogis and all of them, they said, "No, no, please, you wait here, stay here and give us the knowledge of the self." So listening to all their sincere prayers, Kartikeya said, "I will stay there." So it is said every Kartik Purnima, there's a big utsav there in the Crouch Parvat in South India, and Kartigai Deepam it is called. A lot of people gather there together. Now this is a simple story, but rejection is something that one can't handle. And that creates a lot of obstacle because we keep that in our mind, and next time when we have to act, we act out of ego. This person did this to me last time, next time I will not cooperate with him, make that person go through some hell. So we start acting out of raga and dvesha. Now that raga and dvesha becomes an obstacle. Why? Because I took it personally. Kartikeya could have been sportive, saying Ganesha used his intelligence. Ganesha didn't cheat. He really used his intelligence. So to take life sportively is a very important aspect, not to take it very personally. What we see as obstacles when we take things personally, we see them, when we look at it as a sport, we become very sportive to accept them as they are. And in that, if we feel that, oh, somebody was more intelligent, more successful, we are able to admire also, rather than become bitter, become angry, become upset, become resentful and leave and, go away. And sometimes people become revengeful also. So those things are all obstacles. So O is for objective knowledge and how we should learn to be objective in life, not take everything very personally. Then B is for broad-mindedness. Our vision should be broad and our focus should be on what is the real vision. It can be vision, it can be goal. If the focus is on that, the two small eyes of Lord Ganesha, they represent the focus on the goal. That what do we really want to achieve? It may be a goal in the world outside, it may be a subjective goal of purifying oneself or achieving a certain level of inner evolution. It could be anything. If my goal is very clear and I remain focused on the goal, many obstacles will not even arise, because my broad-minded outlook helps me to remain focused on the goal, not get distracted by various either temptations or psychological reactions or comments of people. You know, Gurudev's one beautiful quote is, obstacles rise the moment we lose sight of the goal. Think about it, in Arjun's life also the same thing happened. The moment he lost sight of the goal, he was in trouble. He forgot that he's a soldier and he's there to protect dharma. That's the goal. Now, when that goal he lost sight of and he started seeing them as personal relatives, then gone. Contrast it with Hanumanji. Hanumanji's goal was, I have to reach Lanka, I have to find Mother Sita. So when Mainak Parvat comes up to, give him some comfort and tells him, I'm a friend of your father, he helped me a lot, and you are on this great mission. You have traveled already quite a bit, so why don't you eat some fruits, drink some sweet water of my rivers, rest a while, and then continue with more energy. Hanumanji says, nothing doing. Ram kaj kinhe binu mohi kaha vishram. Till I don't finish Bhagwan's work, where is the rest for me? So remaining focused on the goal, that is a very, very important quality. So when we are broad-minded, our mind remains focused on the goal. We don't become narrow, get fixated on something and then get attached and get distracted. So comfort zones, distractions, some other goal tempting me away, some comments of people, some self-doubt. Many times we start doubting, am I even capable of achieving that goal or not? All these are obstacles that will come. Many times our inspiration goes down. So at such times, what do I have to do? Again, ask myself, why am I doing this? What is my purpose? It can be anything. It can be weight loss. It can be, daily getting up and doing some meditation, or, daily studying some book or a scripture, or any such thing. I'm just giving a simple examples. It can be some financial goal. It can be some target for sales, or whatever it can be. To remain focused on the goal is a very important quality. So one beautiful quote of Gurudev says here, life when properly tuned can round the sharp edges in our character. There are quite a few sharp edges in our character. When we tune up our life properly to our goal, those sharp edges can all be rounded up and we become, beautiful in our personality. So broad-mindedness is to keep the goal always in mind. One beautiful story of Ganesh Ji is this, again, which is when Vedavyas Ji wanted to write when he wanted to compose the Mahabharata. He wanted a competent person to write the Mahabharata and he has to dictate. So he thought that, okay, let me invoke Ganesh Ji. And so finally Ganesh Bhagwan was invoked. But Ganesh Ji said, I will write only on one condition, that you should not stop. If you stop, I will disappear. Vedavyas Ji said, okay, but I will also accept you as a scribe on one condition. You should not write anything without understanding. So both of them agreed on the condition and Vedavyas Ji started explaining. He started dictating. And Ganesh Ji is writing. Usual, those times that ink pot and the feather, and he's taking that and writing. But the speed at which he is dictating, Vedavyas Ji, Ganesh Ji is not able to match up with the feather. So the feather breaks. Vedavyas Ji has not stopped, because if he stops, Ganpati Bhagwan will disappear. That is Vedavyas Ji's thinking. So he says, no, I will not. And do you know what is written in our scriptures? That it is not dictation that is happening. It is thought transference that is happening. If you go to Badrinath even today, ahead of Badrinath is Mana village. That's the last village on India's border. Then China starts. There is a Vyasa Gufa on top, and down below there's Ganesh Gufa. Ganesh is supposed to have sat down there, Vyasji sitting in his gufa up, and thought transference is happening. You see, the picture that we generally see, the artists have painted that below a tree, one Veda Vyasji sitting, and next to him is one Ganesha. The scripture, Mahabharata, doesn't say that. Mahabharata says they were sitting separately and the thought transference is happening there. So imagine the speed of thought. Now Ganpati Bhagwan has to get the thought at the speed of thought, that is fine, but he has to write at the speed of thought of Vedavyasi. So his feather broke. Now what will Ganeshji do? Immediately he breaks his one tusk and he continues to write. Why? Because the goal is important. For the sake of the goal, if I have to give up my personal comfort, what is very dear to an elephant is the tusk. The tusk is very, very dear to an elephant. He broke it. Meaning, if the goal has to be achieved, I have to give up any personal comfort, I will do that. Because that itself becomes an obstacle, the comfort. So he broke. And this story is very interesting because why did Vedavyasji give that condition? See, Vedavyasji is thinking from his mind. And our own mind and intellect can have many limitations. Because our ideas, thoughts, concepts, they can be limited. So when he put the condition that Ganeshji should not write anything without him understanding it, it means the limitation of Vedavyasji's, the human thinking will be removed because now there's a divine sanction to it. Ganeshji himself has understood it, approved it, and he's writing it. Not that Vedavyasji is an ordinary human being. He is himself avatar of Vishnu Bhagwan. But that story has that connection. The symbolism is that any creation of ours, when we become empty and it passes through us, it is the divine manifesting through us. And in this situation, it is divine manifesting through Vedavyasji, again manifesting through Ganeshji, and then becoming Mahabharata. So Mahabharata is called Pancham Ved, the fifth Veda. And Ganeshji is the one who is a scribe for it. That's why it is said, what is in Mahabharata is in the world. What is not in Mahabharata is not in the world. So this is called broad-mindedness, being able to focus on the goal at all times, not getting distracted, not allowing the obstacle to overwhelm us. So O for objectivity or objective knowledge, B for broad-mindedness, S for sensitivity. So Gurudev's quote here is beautiful. Be like a flower, give happiness and fragrance to all. This analogy is very nice because what does a plant take? A plant takes just, mud, water, sunlight, manure, and transforms it into a beautiful flower which gives fragrance to everybody. What does Ganeshji take? He takes simple, ordinary Durva grass. And Durva grass grows anywhere. It's not a special type of a grass. It's a common, normal grass which grows anywhere. And that grass is taken up, bundled, and offered to Ganeshji. He takes Durva grass, but what does he bless the devotee with? Modak. Ka means to give. Modak gives blessings and bliss to all. Because he cares for the devotees. So when we are sensitive, we love, we care, we try to do things for the people whom we love. We understand their difficulties, we help them to overcome their challenges and all that. So Ganeshji is symbol of this aspect, sensitivity aspect. Now sensitivity expresses in many ways. One of the best ways to express our care, love, sensitivity is by listening. 2 years of Ganeshji, big years of Ganeshji. All of us know, symbol of listening. So many things that we go through in life, are mainly because of listening reducing. Nowadays, relationships have a lot of conflict because people don't listen to each other. It is said almost 60% of product innovations come by listening to the customer feedback, listening to the workers, to the employees. So apart from public speaking skills, one has to also learn listening skills. In the scripture, the Shanti Mantra of the Atharva Veda is Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha. Oh Lord, may we listen to the auspicious. Then comes Bhadram Pashyama. May we first listen, then we see. Because all knowledge comes to us from listening. Objective knowledge also, subjective knowledge also, it all comes by listening. When we listen to people, we can understand why they are going through, what they are going through, how to help them. And Ganpati Bhagwan listens to the devotees. So I'm going to share one very beautiful video on listening and how to improve our quality of listening. It's a nice TED talk.
We are losing our listening. We spend roughly 60% of our communication time listening, but we're not very good at it. We retain just 25% of what we hear. Now, not you, not this talk, but that is generally true. Let's define listening as making meaning from sound. It's a mental process, and it's a process of extraction. We use some pretty cool techniques to do this. One of them is pattern recognition. So in a cocktail party like this, if I say, David, Sarah, pay attention, some of you just sat up. We recognize patterns to distinguish noise from signal, and especially our name. Differencing is another technique we use. If I left this pink noise on for more than a couple of minutes, you would literally cease to hear it. We listen to differences, we discount sounds that remain the same. And then there is a whole range of filters. These filters take us from all sound down to what we pay attention to. Most people are entirely unconscious of these filters, but they actually create our reality in a way because they tell us what we're paying attention to right now. I'll give you one example of that. Intention is very important in sound, in listening. When I married my wife, I promised her that I would listen to her every day as if for the first time. Now that's something I fall short of on a daily basis. But it's a great intention to have in a relationship. But that's not all. Sound places us in space and in time. If you close your eyes right now in this room, you're aware of the size of the room from the reverberation and the bouncing of the sound off the surfaces. And you're aware of how many people are around you because of the micro noises you're receiving. And sound places us in time as well, because sound always has time embedded in it. In fact, I would suggest that our listening is the main way that we experience the flow of time from past to future. So, sonority is time and meaning, a great quote. I said at the beginning, we're losing our listening. Why did I say that? Well, there are a lot of reasons for this. First of all, we invented ways of recording. First, writing, then audio recording, and now video recording as well. The premium on accurate and careful listening has simply disappeared. Secondly, the world is now so noisy, with this cacophony going on visually and auditorily, it's just hard to listen. It's tiring to listen. Many people take refuge in headphones, but they turn big public spaces like this, shared soundscapes, into millions of tiny little personal sound bubbles. In this scenario, nobody's listening to anybody. We're becoming impatient. We don't want oratory anymore, we want sound bites. And the art of conversation is being replaced, dangerously, I think, by personal broadcasting. I don't know how much listening there is in this conversation, which is sadly very common, especially in the UK. We're becoming desensitized. Our media have to scream at us with these kind of headlines in order to get our attention. And that means it's harder for us to pay attention to the quiet, the subtle, the understated. This is a serious problem that we're losing our listening. This is not trivial. Because listening is our access to understanding. Conscious listening always creates understanding. And only without conscious listening can these things happen. A world where we don't listen to each other at all is a very scary place indeed. So I'd like to share with you 5 simple exercises, tools you can take away with you to improve your own conscious listening. Would you like that? Good. The first one is silence. Just 3 minutes a day of silence is a wonderful exercise to reset your ears and to recalibrate so that you can hear the quiet again. If you can't get absolute silence, go for quiet. That's absolutely fine. Second, I call this the mixer. So even if you're in a noisy environment like this, and we all spend a lot of time in places like this, listen in the coffee bar to how many channels of sound can I hear? How many individual channels in that mix am I listening to? You can do it in a beautiful place as well, like a lake. How many birds am I hearing? Where are they? Where are those ripples? It's a great exercise for improving the quality of your listening. Third, this exercise I call savoring, and this is a beautiful exercise. It's about enjoying mundane sounds. This, for example, is my tumble dryer. It's a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I love it. Or just try this one on for size. Wow! So mundane sounds can be really interesting if you pay attention. I call that the hidden choir. It's around us all the time. The next exercise is probably the most important of all of these. If you just take one thing away, this is listening positions. The idea that you can move your listening position to what's appropriate to what you're listening to. This is playing with those filters. You remember I gave you those filters at the beginning? It's starting to play with them as levers, to get conscious about them and to move to different places. These are just some of the listening positions or scales of listening positions that you can use. There are many. Have fun with that. It's very exciting. And finally, an acronym. You can use this in listening, in communication. If you're in any one of those roles, and I think that probably is everybody who's listening to this talk. The acronym is RASA, which is the Sanskrit word for juice or essence. And rasa stands for receive, which means pay attention to the person, appreciate, making little noises like, oh, okay. Summarize, the word so is very important in communication, and ask questions afterwards. Now, sound is my passion, it's my life. I wrote a whole book about it, so I live to listen. That's too much to ask for most people. But I believe that every human being needs to listen consciously in order to live fully. Connected in space and in time to the physical world around us, connected in understanding to each other, not to mention spiritually connected, because every spiritual path I know of has listening and contemplation at its heart. That's why we need to teach listening in our schools as a skill. Why is it not taught? It's crazy. And if we can teach listening in our schools, we can take our listening off that slippery slope to that dangerous, scary world that I talked about and move it to a place where everybody is consciously listening all the time, or at least capable of doing it. Now, I don't know how to do that, but this is TED. And I think the TED community is capable of anything. So I invite you to connect with me, connect with each other, take this mission out, and let's get listening taught in schools and transform the world in one generation to a conscious listening world, a world of connection, a world of understanding, and a world of peace. Thank you for listening to me today.
Okay, so that was a very nice talk on how to improve our listening. There's a very nice quote which says that every flower speaks if you have the eyes to listen. Think about it. Every flower speaks if you have the eyes to listen, meaning we can listen through our whole being. Expression of love is listening. People feel bonded, connected when they feel that, somebody is there to listen to me. So sensitivity comes through that. When we learn to listen, when we understand better, like he said, we can create a better world when we learn to listen better and then understand. So O for objective knowledge or objectivity, B for broad-mindedness, S for sensitivity, T for toughness. So Gurudev's quote here is, suffering depends not upon the actual happening, but upon the texture of our mind. The suffering depends not on the actual happening, but mainly on the texture of my mind. Toughest of situations I can deal with if my mind is tough. Most simple situation I can get stressed out if my mind is not tough. Now that famous book which is there, tough times don't last, tough people do. In the same way. So toughness is very important. Lord Ganesha's entire body itself is a symbol of toughness and strength. An elephant is a very strong symbol of strength. And even in that, specifically if you say the trunk of the elephant can uproot huge trees. It can carry a simple wooden stick, or it can carry even a small pin. It is very flexible and it is very strong. Toughness and flexibility should go together. The real toughness is when a person is able to accept life as it comes, as well as, face it with inner strength and challenges. The higher the pressures rise, the tougher this person becomes. That is a very powerful quality. So toughness, we can cultivate this toughness by how? By study of the scriptures, by anchoring in the Lord, by learning to read the lives of so many great saints and great masters, great achievers, leaders, that how they went through difficult times and still they managed to overcome and rise high to great success. So some of those qualities we can imbibe. So T is for toughness. O-B-S-T. A is for alertness. Alertness and acceptance. So Ganeshji's 4 hands, in that 2 hands at the back, with one hand he holds a rope, we call as a noose, pasha, and the other hand he holds an axe, ankusha. Axe which is in the form of a ankusha, which can goad. The elephant has to be goaded. So ankusha is used to control the elephant. So pasha and ankusha, how are they symbol of alertness and acceptance? Alertness means where our mind remains focused, and also alertness is that our ego doesn't arise. The real alertness is that ego doesn't arise. In a spiritual seeker's life, the alertness is that I constantly remember the Lord, or I constantly remember the self, and my ego doesn't arise. So these two symbolize that whenever we get distracted, whenever our mind goes off track, the news of the Lord pulls us back. Come back to track, stay focused on the goal that you have. And the axe is a symbol of destroying the ego. Bhagwan destroys our ego in many ways. But what happens is, our ego keeps rising. There are so many humbling experiences that come in our life. So it is the ankusha and the pasha of Bhagwan that is working. And we learn sometimes the lessons out of it, but again sometimes we forget, again our ego starts playing its own tricks. Till we don't learn the lesson properly, these situations will keep repeating. So that's why we find sometimes we keep having similar experiences, or we keep having similar patterns in our life. Why? Because some experiences we have not learned from. So we are repeating similar mistakes, or similar thought patterns are going on and on and on. So it is the Lord who helps us to become alert, learn to accept, pull us back from distractions and negative tendencies, destroy our ego. So that is Pasha and Ankusha for alertness. And acceptance is the big belly. Bhagwan can digest any form of experience that comes. Same way, we should have that ability to accept life as it comes. It is not going to be easy, but when grace of Bhagwan is there, then we can accept. Like see Ganesh ji, there is a story of the moon. The moon, one day Ganesh ji was finishing some work. He was sitting on his Vahan, Mushak, and he was traveling, going back to his abode. And suddenly he tripped from the mouse. So moon, Chandra, who was looking at it, laughed. And Ganeshji looked at Chandra and he was laughing. Chandra was laughing. So Ganeshji, out of anger, told him that anybody who looks at you on the Ganesh Chaturthi day will go through challenges and obstacles. Now that's the story. So many people don't look at Chandrama on the Ganesh Chaturthi day. But what is the symbolism of that story? Mouse is a very small, tiny animal, and Ganeshji is such a huge Bhagwan. He is riding on this small little mouse. That very picture seems very funny and ridiculous to us. That how can an elephant travel on a mouse? But what is important to understand here is this. Our body is like this mouse. The infinite reality is residing here in our heart. The one who has realized this absolute truth is the great realized master. The world will criticize, condemn, censure such great masters. But they take it all in their stride. Sometimes they may, say some things as though they are angry, but it is for the well-being only. It is not because they take it personally. They learn to accept. You look at any great master's life, it will not be a life of comfort. Because what they try to tell people is to get out of their comfort zone, to help them overcome likes and dislikes, manage their senses, control their mind, be detached in relationships. People are not going to find this very easy. And people are going to resist, react. But a leader will always learn to accept it all and continue to serve, not become resentful, not become upset, not become rude, go into a shell. Learn to accept, because the world will do what it has to do. And we have to do what we have to do. So acceptance, the big belly of Ganeshji is the acceptance. So OBSTA, C. C is for concentration. Now either the eyes of Ganeshji can represent concentration, or that very mouse. If you look at the mouse, this mouse is sitting quietly looking at Lord Ganesha. With all the fruits and modak and everything around, the mouse is sitting quietly. He's not running around, not eating, nibbling. Very difficult for the mouse to do that. But he's sitting observing the Lord, waiting for the instructions of the Lord. So that mouse represents our mind. The mind which has been controlled The mind which doesn't run wild with desires. That mouse is symbol of desire. And the mind which is filled with lot of desires is a mind which cannot have concentration. But the mouse keeps looking only at Ganeshji. So when our mind is focused on the higher, then our desires get controlled easily. Then even if tempting objects are present all around, the mind doesn't get distracted by it. Because our focus is on the Lord. So every single day when we do abhyas, in the Gita Bhagavan says this, he says, because Arjuna asked that question, that what is that because of, how do I control my mind? It is difficult to control this. A storm can be controlled, a cyclone can be controlled, but to control my mind is very difficult. So how do I do it? So Bhagavan says 2 points, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Practice of single-pointedness and dispassion. If both these are there, then the mind will become quiet and controlled. And that mouse represents both these. That mouse is single-pointedly looking at Bhagavan. So every single day, if we do Abhyas of Japa, take any mantra and repeat that with devotion, with love, not mechanically. So with devotion and love, when I keep doing the japa, any one distracting thought comes, don't encourage it. Focus back only on the mantra. Then the mind will not get disturbed. It will train. We can train the mind. Slowly it becomes focused. So C is for concentration. And overcoming any obstacle, a mind which has concentration can focus on what is the main cause of this and try to overcome it. A mind which is divided, dissipated, doesn't have strength to face the obstacles. So concentration of the mind is a very important quality to overcome obstacles. Especially when obstacles come, our mind gets very dissipated, divided, disturbed. So we are not able to focus the mind. Like even right now, anxieties will be there, tension will be there. What will happen in the future? When will this COVID situation go? So the mind gets divided, dissipated. And then we feel we don't have a grip on our life. We don't have, a certain sense of control. Things going haywire, it appears like that. So concentration helps to bring back the mind into the present, be focused. So that mouse is symbolic of that concentration. Then L, C-L-E, L for love of God. How to concentrate? That's the next point, is love. The secret of concentration is love. The more love we invoke in our heart, more easier it becomes to concentrate. And how will I invoke more love? Read, gain more knowledge. So if I say I love Ganeshji, then what should I read? I should read Ganesh Puran. I can read Mudgal Puran. I can read Skanda Puran. I can read Padma Puran, Brahma Vaivarta Puran. There are many Puranas which describe Lord Ganesha, his glories, his leelas, stories, many things come in that. So more knowledge I get, more I will be able to focus. So the love of the Lord, developing more and more devotion for Bhagavan. This hand of Lord Ganesha is called Abhay Hasta. It grants blessings. Not only material blessings, but it also grants anything that we need which is spiritual. It can be devotion, it can be knowledge, it can be grace, anything. Bhagavan's hand is this, Abhay Hasta. Whenever a devotee looks at Abhay Hasta, the devotee feels reassurance that my mind may be weak, my mind may not have that much of capabilities, but Bhagavan's grace is with me. So remembering that, the person learns to have strength and confidence. So this is the Abhay Hasta of Bhagavan. So L is for love of God. So when we want to develop more love, we should ask Bhagwan, ki Bhagwan, bless me with more devotion. Bless me with more Shraddha. In whoever is my Ishtadevata, it need not be only Ganeshji. It can be any Ishtadevata. Abhayahasta Bhagwan is such that Bhagwan doesn't ask anything else. You first deposit this much wealth, then I will give you this. There are no charges. Or you have to do this many, you have to break this many coconuts, then I will give you. Nothing. If we open up ourselves, blessings of Bhagwan, we are able to tap. So when a devotee meditates that the Abhayahasta Bhagwan is on my head, every day after you finish the japa, you can do this visualization that I am prostrating to Bhagwan and his hand is on my head. So his grace and blessings are always with me. That is L, love of God. And E is for enthusiasm. Last alphabet, E. Enthusiasm and efficiency. So what is that enthusiasm and efficiency? To meet any obstacle, we need to be very efficient. We can't be lazy, lethargic, dull. And we should also have inspiration inside. Born out of the goal, the vision that I have, what I want to achieve, born out of that should be an inner inspiration, which helps us not to give up. Now Ganeshji is how he is sitting. One leg is folded and one leg is down. So the folded leg is the leg which is symbolic of inspiration, enthusiasm, energy. And the leg which is down is symbol of action. So in the world outside, so the leg which is down is symbolic of efficiency, acting efficiently. So more I act efficiently, easier it will be for me to face the challenges. Like right now in COVID situation also, how efficiently and effectively we are able to test. Then we are able to find out who are affected, who are asymptomatic, how to treat them. The speed, accuracy, the quality of the test, the time taken to get the result, all those are very important. Then based on that, many things can be done. So one is efficiency and the other is energy, enthusiasm, inspiration, because it's a long battle. And if we lose energy, inspiration, hope, then our efficiency will also go down. Every day, so many new cases arising and the spike in cases keeps happening every day. And when people take it more casually, easily, then they are losing efficiency and we lose the battle. We are no more careful, no more alert, then becomes more and more challenging for everyone. So, two legs of Ganeshji symbolize enthusiasm and efficiency. So I will end with this quote of Gurudev where he says, the real men of achievement are people who have the heroism to fuel more and more enthusiasm in their work when they face more and more difficulties. Be aggressively good. Now, if we have these qualities of Ganeshji, we will not have to pray to Ganeshji ki, oh Ganeshji, you remove our obstacles. Our capability to overcome obstacles with his grace will enhance. So our prayer will be, Bhagwan, you bless me with more strength to overcome these obstacles and ultimately become one with the Supreme. So this is the beautiful acronym of obstacle. O for objectivity and objective knowledge. B for broad-mindedness. S for sensitivity. T for toughness. A for alertness and acceptance. C for concentration. L for love of God. E for enthusiasm and efficiency. So may Lord Ganesha bless us with all these qualities. Help us to come out of this COVID situation soon and any other obstacles also. And even in spiritual path, any obstacles that come, May we overcome them and be one with the Lord. So I will stop today here and wish you all a happy Ganesh Chaturthi tomorrow. May Lord Ganesha's grace be with all of us.